And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And, where do we begin? I guess in Alabama, when we're talking about the situation going on with Judge Moore. We'll talk a little bit about that. We're also waiting for our guest, Father Longenecker. He's going to join us to talk about Donald Trump and Israel, and, of course, what happened yesterday with the ISIS attack. As you heard Maggie talk about here, is any place safe in America? But let me start with the Trump accusers, and let me start with, where we are in America today. If you haven't heard, and, just as we predicted here at KIDO Talk Radio, that you would have people trying to tie the shenanigans of Al Franken, the shenanigans of John Conyers, the shenanigans of everybody else to President Trump. And you had people yesterday calling on Donald Trump to resign. Now, this is just crazy. This is just crazy. Why are they doing this? Because, let's face it, Donald Trump is the best thing that has happened to conservatism, that has happened to the country, to populism in quite some time. He might not be the best for the Republican Party. He might not be best for Mitch McConnell, but he's the best thing going today. He has changed the dynamic. Look at what's going on in Alabama. And by the way, we're going to do our very best to actually go live to Alabama. And Ray and I will do this on the fly. This half hour, we're going to actually call into a live radio show at WVNN in Huntsville. And we're going to talk to host Dale Jackson. And we'll go on the air there. He'll go on the air here. And we'll compare notes. And you might have heard Dale on CNN or seen him on CNN over the weekend. He's a very opinionated young man, and we look forward to speaking with him. Huntsville was one of my stops and has a great place in my heart. So Judge Roy Moore, we'll talk a little bit about that. But back to these Trump accusers. If you haven't heard, let's take a listen here and your thoughts on what they're trying to do to get rid of the president.
Nothing shocks me or surprises me about Trump anymore. In fact, I think his endorsement of Roy Moore makes perfect sense for him because he was able to just deny, what we said, and that got him elected just fine. So, it's like he's passing the torch for Roy to do the same.
Well, this is a broader problem. By the way, if you haven't heard this morning, a major embarrassment for the NFL Network. You have several prominent former athletes, now people, playing in the that played for the NFL, that are now being suspended. They are not victims, but they are litigants in a lawsuit filed by an on-air talent there, a young lady who's had it. Can it get any worse for the NFL? We'll talk a little bit about that, but here we go under people behaving badly. Here's our own Paul Stevens with the latest at KIDO Talk Radio.
3 NFL Network analysts now suspended after former wardrobe stylist Jamie Cantor came forward with claims she was sexually harassed by several men, including retired players, while employed at the network. A suit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court claiming that retired player Marshall Faulk asked her personal invasive questions about her sex life and then groped and fondled her. Cantor also claiming that Ike Taylor sent her sexually inappropriate pictures. The NFL Network suspending Faulk, Taylor, and Heath Evans as well, pending an investigation. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
So here we have it. So I guess Donald Trump is responsible for the shenanigans at the NFL Network. And we oversimplify things. You have Al Franken with his comments last week about how he was, a victim and how he wasn't going to go out without going after Donald Trump. Come on, guys. It is utterly ridiculous. And I love how you have people calling for the president to be investigated.
Trump should be investigated. Our elected officials, no matter what their party affiliation, should act.
Now, do you believe that the president of the United States should be investigated? I don't think so. The president had everything thrown at him. And what happened? Absolutely nothing. the people have chosen Donald Trump, albeit imperfect. But Trump has made the stand, and he continues to do so. Look, I wish that I would be investing in the stock market. All the money's going up, just like Bitcoin. Of course, what goes up, we know what happens there. But at 580-5436, to me, this is nothing more than cheap shots. To me, we can't get Trump this way, so we're going to get him that way. It's not the Russians. It's not the Muslims. It's not the wall. It's crazy, and we've never seen anything like this. You know what we've seen before is we've seen the press react the other way. When you have people like Barack Obama that they protect, this is the exact opposite of this. By the way, here's our own Rachel Sutherland at KIDO Talk Radio with the very latest summing up the Trump accusers.
The women say Congress should treat misconduct allegations against the president the same way it treats accusations against other elected officials. Former Miss USA contestant Samantha Holvey says the pageant owner treated her like a piece of meat.
I think it only stands fair that he be investigated as well.
Jessica Leeds, who claims the then businessman groped her on a plane decades ago, agrees.
We are not holding our president accountable.
The president has denied the allegations. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
All right, so there we have it. Because Al Franken, John Conyers, Congressman Franks have stepped down, all of a sudden now we're saying it's time for the president to be investigated. They're not the boss of the president. The president is elected by the people. By the way, Sarah Sanders was asked about this yesterday during the White House press briefing.
As the president said himself, he thinks it's a good thing that women are coming forward, but he also feels strongly that a mere allegation shouldn't determine the course. And in this case, the president has denied any of these allegations, as have eyewitnesses.
There we have it. It gets better. Ms. Sanders.
Look, the president has addressed these accusations directly and denied all of these allegations, and this took place long before he was elected to be president, and the people of this country had a decisive election, supported President Trump, and we feel like these allegations have been answered through that process.
And there we have it. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I don't believe that there's anyone listening to KIDO Talk Radio that really believes these allegations. Because if these allegations were true, the people would not have elected Donald Trump. If these allegations were true, then people would not have trusted Donald Trump to turn around and undo what Barack Obama has done to us. That's really what it comes down to, right?
We will hold Mr. Trump to the same standard as Harvey Weinstein and the other men who were held accountable for their reprehensible behavior. Therefore, I ask that Congress put aside their party affiliations and investigate Mr. Trump's history of sexual misconduct.
You see, that's really what it comes down to. Sadly, it's not about stopping sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, any of those issues. Sadly, it's about sticking it to Donald Trump. Don't you agree? The issue here is they're trying to get rid of a person who was elected and will be reelected. So that's one big major story. The other story is this issue involving what's going on with the NFL. And I suppose we could call it karma. You remember Lindsey Vonn was speaking out again and again and again. Lindsey Vonn was speaking out about how she's not representing America. And then the next day she was injured. You have the NFL saying, well, Donald Trump is a bad person. And now hit with another sexual harassment suit. Another sexual harassment, I don't even want to know what to call it. It's a lawsuit where they're saying these former players, now on-air talent, behaved inappropriately around females. When are we going, I guess I'm sounding like Polly Purebred here this morning. When are we going to say enough is enough, right? When it comes down to people misbehaving badly.
And in this Me Too moment of reckoning, Trump does not get a pass.
Right. I don't think really Trump gets a pass on anything.
Nothing shocks me or surprises me about Trump anymore. In fact, I think his endorsement of Roy Moore makes perfect sense for him because he was able to just deny what we said, and that got him elected just fine. So, it's like it's passing the torch for Roy to do the same.
I see. We're passing the torch for old Roy.
One thing I don't like the media has said, that a lot of people who are Republicans claim they're going to vote for me and just ignore what they believe. I'm going to tell you, if you don't believe in my character, don't vote for me.
Wow. Pretty shocking there. By the way, Doug Jones, the erstwhile liberal attorney out of Birmingham, Alabama, had this to say.
Take people with you to the polls. Grab folks that you can, because as we all know, this election is going to be one of the most significant in our state's history in a long, long time.
Those folks in Alabama, they're crazy anyway, and we'll hear from them in a minute. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, look, the issue here is if Doug Jones happens to win, it's going to be, well, we showed Donald Trump. It's not about Roy Moore's character. It's about sticking it to Donald Trump. It's not about whether or not there's a conservative or a liberal there. It's about sticking it to Donald Trump. That's what it's all personal, right? It's all personal. And then you have Charles Barkley, who supposedly is a Republican. He's a famous basketball guy, now on television, urging people to vote for Doug Jones. Doug Jones is a pro-abortion candidate in a pro-life state. But that doesn't stop Charles Barkley.
Please get out and vote for Doug tomorrow, and I'm glad to play a little small part. But it's time for us to draw a line in the sand and do the right thing.
And there we have it. Coming up next, we'll take your phone calls. I see a lot of people coming on. Then before that, though, we're going to go live to Alabama. At least we're going to attempt to go live to Alabama. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio. I guess Ray Amaya will do this at 6:23 because in Alabama they're very accurate with their timing and such. They're very formal at WVNN in Huntsville. Now, Hank and Rick, hang on, but we want to make sure you all have enough time as possible. Now, look, and what's going to happen here is we're going to go live on the air to the Dale Jackson Show in Huntsville, Alabama, on WVNN in Alabama to get the latest on Judge Moore. Dale's an old friend of mine, and we'll get the Alabama perspective. Now, we're going to give you your perspective. We're going to hear from you, but I just thought it would be neat to kind of listen in on the air as this happens. So we'll do that. And by the way, we've made the Dale Jackson Twitter. Isn't that exciting here? We'll be simulcasting this, so it's very dangerous when you have two talk show hosts going toe-to-toe because, who gets the word in edgewise. But as you know, we like to listen here. And so I can't wait for the perspective here at KIDO Talk Radio. Also coming up, we've got a lot to talk about today. The Trump accusations, the Trump accusers. Do you believe them? We ask you to be very patient. We will take your calls on that. And then the story Maggie O'Mara yapped a little bit about earlier, where she was saying that the gentleman that rammed his car into the Ada County Courthouse, well, he rammed into the fountain outside. He had a court appearance as well. So we'll see how that plays out as we move along. Now, it might be a little uncomfortable here, but we're about 10 seconds away, so we'll see what happens here. By the way, we'll go to WVNN here at KIDO Talk Radio.
Having us on with you. Kevin, good morning. How you doing?
Dale Jackson, I am so proud of you. It is, and you're not paying me to say this, it is amazing what you've done locally there I was going to say in the Treasure Valley, but in the Tennessee Valley, on TV, on radio, and your appearances on CNN, I'm going, wow, so dynamic. So it's a blessing to have you on here in Idaho. We'd love to hear what you have to say about what's going on in Alabama.
Here's the breakdown that I'll give you, Kevin. It's pretty simple here. Unless there is a huge black turnout somewhere along the lines of 2012 where Barack Obama was running for re-election, which, by the way, is exactly the dynamic that the Fox News poll that has Doug Jones up 10% is counting on, or 10 points rather, is counting on. Roy Moore is going to win this thing. I think it will be close. I think that it will be somewhere between maybe 2 to 5 or maybe 7 points, and that's a lot of hedging on my part. But I think Roy Moore has this thing. I think the effect of the allegations against Roy Moore has kind of petered off a little bit, and Doug Jones never made this about Doug Jones. It was about Roy Moore and nothing else, and I think Doug Jones loses that race.
You know, Doug Jones is a squirrely dude to begin with. Not a likable guy. I found him from my few times that I've covered him in Alabama. How has your access been to these candidates? Because I know I follow you on national TV. So have they realized the power of the Dale Jackson Show?
No. Roy Moore came on this program during the primary. I embarrassed him to the point that it got play on MSNBC, CNN, and the Seth Meyers show. So it was that's the kind of interview that went, how that went. Moore never came back on the program. Doug Jones wouldn't even respond to us. I offered both of them the opportunity to be interviewed on this program by a person of their choosing, just so my audience could hear what they had to say, and they could. I basically offered them each an hour-long free commercial. Roy Moore took me up on that. State Representative Ed Henry interviewed him here on that. With those rules, Doug Jones never even responded. So, no, Doug Jones wouldn't talk to us. No surprise there, but Doug Jones wouldn't speak.
Hey, what about your guy, Mo Brooks?
Mo Brooks is a great human being and would have made an amazing senator. Completely screwed over by Mitch McConnell and those types, trying to save Luther Strange, who was the senator appointed by Robert Bentley. Here's the reality there. They thought Roy Moore was beatable in a primary. That's all that was. They wanted to take out Mo Brooks as soon as they could. Mo Brooks would have mopped the floor with both of these guys, but in a three-way race not known by the entire state, Mo Brooks wasn't really able to make traction, and that is to the detriment of Alabama, North Alabama, and the United States of America.
Dale Jackson joining us. We're live on WVNN in Huntsville. Kevin Miller here on KIDO Talk Radio. Dale, Congressman Brooks, a great guy, a great supporter. Are you surprised that people in Idaho, well, probably not in Idaho or across the country, are fascinated by this story, the national attention that you've been getting?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that works against Doug Jones. I mean, the national attention works against Doug Jones because what you have is every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the country going, boy, those guys down there in Alabama sure are stupid. I can't believe they're even having this conversation. And then they go, yeah, you think we're stupid? That's what you think? Well, what do you want us to do? Vote for Doug Jones? Okay, we'll make sure we don't do that. And that's this stuff is a very negative for Doug Jones to have it nationalized this way. He knows it. Yesterday, Doug Jones was asked about a robocall Barack Obama put out for him, and Doug Jones acted like he didn't know about it. I mean, he's the candidate. The ex-president of the United States of America records a robocall for you, and you pretend you don't know about it. That's how little he wanted to nationalize this race.
Now, I've got to ask you, you've been pretty tough on the president.
Yeah, I don't like him. He's a pathological liar and a jerk.
Oh, my gosh. you know,
I voted for him, though. I've got
to send you the script. You are certainly off the script from every conservative talk show host in America, I think.
Yeah, that may be true. The reality is this. I like to try my best. I'm not saying other people don't do this. I know you do this. I like to tell people what I think. And that's what I think. I listen to the things the President of the United States says, and I think to myself sometimes, yeah, I can get behind that. And sometimes I think to myself, wow, this guy's full of crap. And I just, things, he's the worst liar in history. I mean, he really is the worst liar. I mean, if you're going to lie, damn, be good at it, He's bad at it. And it's just, it's frustrating to me because I want him to succeed. Because I want to see what he envisions, or at least says he envisions for the country to come to fruition, but he's his own worst enemy, and over and over and over again he screws himself. So I think it's just like a kid. You want different behavior out of a kid, you don't praise him, you criticize him, and hopefully that changes his behavior. Not just me, but other people criticizing him. That's my thought process. Maybe I'm crazy there.
Boy, you're so courageous. Dale Jackson, anything else you'd like to share with us? We appreciate you making time with us for us on such short notice. And I said, I've got to come down there and just hang with you for a couple days.
I don't know. You come down here and you try to hang with me, Kevin.
Exactly. Yes, I'll try. Yes, sir.
I will say this just real quick. We have about a minute left. I know you do too. Having you on here is really bad for my business because it shows what a professional radio host actually sounds like as opposed to a guy like me. So I don't know how often we can do this kind of stuff.
No. I'm going, boy, this guy's popping. I agree. He's a little too hot for us here. But Dale Jackson, again, I've told you this off the air. I always appreciate your generosity, your kindness, and your talent. You are certainly one of the young lions of conservative radio. They are so blessed to have you in the Treasure Valley, in the Tennessee Valley. And I really appreciate you making time for us today, sir.
Hey, no problem. Stop saying I'm a nice guy. You're ruining my shtick down here, all right? Thank you very much. Kevin Miller, simulcast. We'll get back to your phone calls next.
All right, our great friend Dale Jackson joining us. Time for traffic and weather together. And coming up, we're going to hear from Hank and Rick and you and the G-Man with me, Kevin Miller, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Rick in Nampa. Rick, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. Hey, I've stayed on the line for one main purpose, and that is to say thank you, Kevin, for standing for the truth and getting it out there, because a strong American principle is a man is innocent until proven guilty. Allegations are allegations. And the reason why Al Franken and the others have backed off is the evidence became obvious. They're guilty. Roy Moore and Donald Trump, you're saying, okay, allegations are allegations. But there is very, very strong evidence that the left-wing Marxists are desperate, and they're going to use any tactic they possibly can to bring down what Donald Trump has been doing in spite of his flaws and what Roy Moore has stood for years. So thank you.
Rick, appreciate your patience. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, Rick in Nampa. All right, let's go to the G-Man, Gernal Scott, joining us from Montgomery, Alabama, with the very latest. Even though we're in Idaho, it's like all things Alabama. Gernal, good morning.
You can't get much more diametrically opposed than that, can you?
I was going to say, and, Montgomery is very unique.
Right.
Then, Gernal, you're a big star on Fox News Radio. Of course, you're going to go, well, Kevin, every place is unique, but I'm going to beat you to that correction. What's it like on the ground there, sir?
It is starting to pick up. I mean, we're a little more than an hour into the voting here, and we see, people kind of milling around, coming into polling places, casting their ballot. And I don't know how many people are paying attention to the polls and how much people are putting stock in the polls, but the last three polls I've looked at, and this is literally true, the last three polls I've looked at, one had Doug Jones up by 10 points. The other, a second, had Roy Moore up by 8 points, and the third had them tied. Now, if you're looking at all of these, you don't exactly know where to go, or you really have to vote your conscience and not pay attention to the polls because they're all over the place. And that's one thing I did get when I talked to a few Alabamans on the street is they say, we're very independent-minded people. We know what we believe, and we're going to put that in our politics and the choices we make. And that's why a lot of people here are still supporting Roy Moore. They say he's innocent until proven guilty, and he can still serve in the Senate. They will give him the opportunity to do that. But there are some who say, Doug Jones is just simply the better option. And we'll see at the end of the day. We expect the numbers of people coming out to be fairly small, as is in most special elections, but it all depends on who actually shows up. Evangelicals, African Americans, they say those will be the key groups that will make the decision today.
A lot of people don't understand that Roy Moore has run before statewide and failed in Alabama, but with the president's endorsement, Gernal, this seems like the perfect storm for him.
It does, and he's, as far as the president's concerned, Roy Moore is saying all the right things, draining the swamp, building the wall. He's saying all the right things. And the president, although he didn't come to Alabama, he went to Pensacola, which is about as close to Alabama as you can get, and still endorsed Roy Moore, because a lot of people outside of Pensacola and Mobile and other places will see that and take it as that endorsement that the president has wanted to give. But I don't know exactly how much that will play as we go through today, because I think people will come to the polls maybe with a bit of a question in mind. Do we take a chance on sending more to Washington and have them in Washington try to send him back? Do we want to go through that, and what kind of light will that put Alabama in? That is something that people here are very concerned about, how the rest of the nation sees this state once these votes are counted today.
I have to ask you, as a person who has worked and lived in the South, Gernal, how unique is Alabama compared to the rest of the region?
When you say unique, you're what are you trying to? You stumped me.
Is it that I don't want to lead the witness, but I having worked in that part of the country, you can say things and do things in Alabama that are culturally acceptable that you couldn't do in, let's say, North Carolina or even in parts of Tennessee. It's a very socially conservative state. I would put it up against any state. Perhaps South Carolina would rival it on the influence of the evangelical and the social conservatives there.
That I can't disagree with anything you've just said. Alabama is very unique and very opinionated when it comes to they take their. Alabama is one of those states that takes religion very seriously. They live by it. And you hear it. And you hear it a lot when Roy Moore goes on campaign events. He talks about religion and God and his beliefs of a whole lot, and that is reflective of Alabama and what they believe, and that's why Roy Moore has so much diehard support, even with all these allegations swirling around him. One woman I talked to yesterday said, "You know what? I'm supporting Roy Moore." I asked her why. She said, "Because he's innocent until proven guilty." That was basically all she said. She said, it does. The allegations against him don't disqualify him from serving in Washington, so I'm going to give him my vote. And that was her conviction. And people here in Alabama are, as you said, strong with those convictions, and they are willing to stand by them.
Did she say Roll Tide or War Eagle afterwards?
She didn't say either. But another guy I did talk to, the other guy I talked to said, one of the things that we really want to see here in Alabama is all this go away. I mean, and they said, we understand that there is a lot of a spotlight that is shining on Alabama, but it's time for all of this to go so we can get back to the real important stuff, like can Alabama win the college football playoff? That's the important thing.
Well, Gernal, enjoy Montgomery. I don't know how much longer you'll be there. The Montgomery Bowl is coming up, but as I've said so many times on the air, it was a blessing working with you. I appreciate your professionalism, your patience and enthusiasm, and I'm so proud that you're at the Big Fox. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Always good to talk to you.
All right, our great friend Gernal Scott joining us live from Montgomery, Alabama. Let's go to Hank, who's been very patient. Hank, I apologize about the wait. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning. No problem at all. I'd like to point out real briefly, though, that in Alabama politics, you had a strain of populism, and there were a series of liberal Democrats that were elected to the Senate from Alabama. One of them was Hugo Black, who later went to the Supreme Court. Another one was Lister Hill. And, of course, you had later on Al Heflin. And basically, just like Idaho, when the Democrat Party went to their social agenda, a lot of the populous, what you might call the poor white areas of Alabama, particularly in northern Alabama, Huntsville, and that area up there, eventually gravitated towards the Republican Party. And I do agree with your talk show host, Dale Jackson, that Mel Brooks would have been probably by far the best man in that, but thanks to good old McConnell, we're in the mess that we're in.
And by the way, Mo Brooks is a very good friend of Congressman Labrador as well.
Yes, Mel Brooks would have been the best man by far in that. Now, getting to my main point about Trump, the Democrat Party had a history of defending the most indefensible people on these types of issues. First thing, Gary Stubbs, who molested a page boy. He was a congressman from the 10th District of Massachusetts, which is the Cape Cod area. molested page boys, and Nancy Pelosi and Jim Wright and Foley, who were the House leadership back then, defended him fully. You had Barney Franks, who kept a male prostitute in his office, and using government money to pay for his male prostitute, and they all defended him. And it seems to me that given, and then of course their defense of the Clintons, and then of course the attack on Clarence Thomas, it seemed like they gathered the wagons around their people, and that shows you how important they consider getting Trump out, that they're willing to sacrifice past their usual procedure, gathering the wagons around.
Well, wait a minute, Hank. The Republicans are like the exact opposite. We retreat and we go, "You're on your own," or we shun our own people. They're guilty until proven innocent. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm leading up to. By doing that, it creates more ratchets of pressure up on the gutless people like McConnell, who's definitely afraid of the spotlight of the media on him. Because the Democrats are going to say, we sacrificed our own. We were willing to be serious on this issue of sexual harassment. What are you doing? And you see, this is the sort of thing that gets McConnell buckling. Like, this is when he starts to run for the tall grass, and a lot of these people are in. Same thing with our great House Speaker. They'll all start running to the tall grass. And the question is this is a double-ended thing, not only to attack Roy Moore, but also to go after Trump himself. And this is the point why the Democrats were prepared to sacrifice Al Franken when normally they would gather the wagons around, because I think that they were preparing this attack in advance. I think that we knew what was about ready to come down, and I think there was a calculated political decision to sacrifice these people to ratchet the pressure up on the Republican leadership in Congress. And Hank, I think that's what's going on here.
Hank, we appreciate you, and thank you again for your patience, sir. We'll do our very best to get to you quicker.
Well, thank you very much. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Now, yesterday, we had people lobbying on the air for the Kevin Miller Christmas party. So at KIDO Talk Radio, KIDOTalkRadio.com, thank you for that correction, I put up a poll. And I said, are you in favor of the Christmas party? Are you not in favor of the Christmas party? And this program, I think, is a fairly popular program. We hold our own. I figured we'd get at least 10 votes, 50 votes. How many votes do you think that we got? Because, again, I hear people all the time, oh, Kevin, we want to go. So I wanted to measure it. And I said, if we get, and please don't do the vote over and over and over again. People were so not interested that we got less than 10 votes on this big, powerful platform website. By the way, you had 4 people vote for the Christmas party and 1 person vote against. And I'm thinking to myself, are we really going to throw something for only 4 people? Which has been a lot of people have criticized this program, saying, well, it's you and members of the Miller militia. It's too inclusive. It needs to broaden a little bit better. So right now, it doesn't look like we're going to have the Kevin Miller Christmas party because we've only had 4 or 5 people vote. It's kind of shocking. Anyway, coming up next, the news of the day. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And here we go. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. By the way, we appreciate our friend Bruce listening, saying, would love to do the party, but if you decide not to do it, we will survive either way. Have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bruce, always appreciate you and Shay, but it really comes down to this, that you got to have more than 4 people that are responding to a scientific poll. It's kind of like if we were, talking about who's running for governor or that sort of thing, and only 4 people replied. That means that, people just aren't interested. So as much as we would like to have the Kevin Miller Christmas party, 4 or 5 people, that not a lot of interaction. And look, it's a wonderful, inviting picture on the website. I mean, it's, a picture of the last one that we've had. So there you go. If you're interested in that, you can vote, and we'll get the tally going. But again, we just appreciate 1 person, 1 vote. I didn't put the magic zap on there that will only allow you to vote once. But 1,000 times just for one person, we can tell if that. We really don't want that. Anyway, let's get back to some news of the day, shall we? Or as a friend of mine would say, oh, let's play the music. We have the people accusing Donald Trump of being a molester. The accusers have come forward. They want an investigation. This isn't about sexual harassment. This is about removing an incredibly popular president. It got a little messy yesterday at the White House press briefing, and the only reason why we bring this up is for entertainment purposes only. We have Jim Acosta talking to Sarah Sanders.
Reporters' mistakes and disinformation campaign by a foreign government. Does he see a distinction there?
I haven't spoken with him about that, but certainly we would take any misinformation like that very seriously. But it's not something we're comparing the two on.
And I would just say, Sarah, that journalists make honest mistakes, and that doesn't make them fake news. But the question that
But when journalists make honest mistakes, they should own up to them. Sometimes, and a lot of times you don't. But there's a difference. There's a very big... I'm sorry, I'm not finished. There's a very big difference between making honest mistakes and purposefully misleading the American people, something that happens regularly. You can't say, I'm not done. You cannot say that it's an honest mistake when you're purposely putting out information that you know to be false, or when you're taking information that hasn't been validated, that hasn't been offered any credibility, and that has been continually denied by a number of people, including people with direct knowledge of an instance. This is something that I'm speaking about the number of reports that have taken place over the last couple of weeks. I'm simply stating that there should be a certain level of responsibility in that process.
This was not,
Brian, I called on Jim.
This is not the line of questioning that I was going down, but can you cite a specific story that you say is intentionally false?
And we'll get to that again. See how they disrespect Sarah Sanders, a mother of 3, a wife, the White House press secretary. They just don't get it. People are tired of the lies perpetrated by the media at the national level. And they're so full of themselves, they can't hear it. It's like they're missing the frequency. I'll prove my point in a minute. First, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to
intentionally put out there to mislead the American people?
Sure. The ABC report by Brian Ross, I think that was pretty misleading to the American people, and I think that it's very telling that that individual had to be suspended because of that reporting. I think that shows that the network took it seriously and recognized that it was a problem.
Sarah,
Jim?
If I may, I was going to ask a question about something else.
Well, you used it on something else. Jim?
If I may...
Sarah,
not today. We're going to keep moving, guys.
If I can ask about the president's accusations...
I'm moving to a different Jim. I'm sorry.
I know, but I didn't get a chance to ask the question that I wanted to ask, which is...
Jim.
Can you just say once and for all whether these...
Jim. No, she politely has wanted to move on, but these guys are so full of themselves, they can't give it up. And they see the camera on themselves, and they think this is their big break. Sean Hannity was talking a little bit about this yesterday. Humpty Dumpty, if you caught it. By the way, Sean, afternoons here at from 3 to 6. Humpty Dumpty. And they all want to be the next CNN bigwig. The name in news, the trusted name in news. And I was listening to Sean, and I was just laughing. I was just laughing at just his commentary on it. It's just crazy. Hey, she proved a point. Sometimes you just have to give it up, right?
I'm going to say once and for all that I'm moving on to Jim Stinson, and I'm not taking another question from you at this point.
Sarah, a question about
to your attacks on
investment taxes.
If that's okay. I would like to ask the question that I had about these accusations.
You know, really what it comes down to, and if you're taking your kids to school, it's what bullies are. And that's what the news media at the national level is. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. I got news for you. Taking it is not fun. It's a lot more fun, not funner, fun, dishing it out. Words to live by. Good morning.